What can I say? I'm a sensual guy.
Over the years, I've grown accustomed to playing some weird and surreal video games. Rain that accelerates time, worlds made out of meat, taking pigeons on dates, growing your own grandpa. All of these experiences and many more have defined my weird years of gaming, but somehow, even with such a basic and relatively tame premise at its surface, Wanted Dead has managed to raise my eyebrow higher than most other games in my recollection. Whether intentionally or accidentally, this game is a constant contradiction that almost broke my neck from the whiplash in trying to write this review, which also means you should really stick around until the end to get the full picture with this one. Before we get into it, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for all of your indie and horror gaming needs. This is a small channel, so every person makes a huge difference in my ramen eating contest against YouTube's algorithm. I also wanted to quickly mention that we've officially passed the 500 subscriber mark on YouTube, meaning we are halfway to becoming an official partner. Whether you've been watching for months or this is your first video, thank you all so much for your support. Now with that all out of the way, let's get right back into the review. Wanted Dead is a third-person hack-and-slash action game revolving around a police squad known as the Zombie Unit in a dystopian Hong Kong. This is the most, and perhaps one of the only, coherent plot points in the game's story, which is our first and probably shortest topic. Despite all of the cutscenes and dialogue throughout the length of the game, it's hard to tell what's actually going on or why, thanks to a consistently jarring lack of important information or context. One minute you're slashing your way through androids, and the next you're blasting ninjas in the face with a shotgun. Thinking back on the experience as a whole, the story just felt like a fever dream after watching Blade Runner on repeat for a week straight. The cherry on top of this melted sundae is the voice acting, which somehow both made the cutscenes worse and was the only reason for listening to them at all.
Gear up.
You heard Captain, right?
We going. Whatever government programs you got there going, I'm cool with it.
You won't get away with this. She's crazy. Come on. Take care of her. Can't you put up more of a fight? You won't get away with this. Little prick. She's crazy. Take care of her. You're fucking kidding me. Don't make me laugh.
From the words themselves to how they're spoken, there are hardly any lines of dialogue from this game that sound like they're from an actual person. And part of the entertainment from this game is listening to how wild the difference in quality is to its visuals and production value. With all of this out of the way, I think it's time we move to a more positive note, the gameplay itself. In contradiction to Wanted Dead's story, I found the actual gameplay side of things to be a nice surprise. While it was a pain to get used to at first, especially without the many quality of life upgrades you earn throughout the game, the combat aspect of Wanted Dead definitely holds up for what the game was going for design-wise. The player has access to a sword, a pistol, a rifle, and one extra gun that can be picked up from enemies. The sword and pistol are the main combat weapons throughout the entire game, serving as your two different close-range attack types. While it may seem strange that a pistol is a melee weapon, that's just something you roll with when it comes to this game. You also have access to regular guns, but with the limited amount of ammo in each mission, they serve more as quick bursts of damage at the beginning of tough fights rather than an actual combat option. While this combat system doesn't really evolve outside of a few key upgrades, you can very quickly lose yourself in the flow of combat once you've gotten the hang of it. However, another fun surprise the game threw my way was the plethora of difficulty spikes and downright infuriating encounters littered throughout the experience. Each mission has the same basic structure of combat encounters, checkpoints, and a boss battle. Checkpoints serve as a refreshment to your health, healing items, and grenades, and throughout most of the game, they also constantly grant new weapon parts to customize your gun stats. While these checkpoints do bring you back up to full shape, there are several instances where they're extremely far apart from each other. While this is already frustrating in the sense that these are your only places to save your game, there are times when the game will throw an unholy amount of enemy encounters at you in between them. If you happen to get a game over in any of these encounters, you're sent right back to the last checkpoint with none of the experience points or upgrades you gained after that save, which can mean losing upwards of 20 minutes of progress in certain points. This is made even worse when you account for the fact that one single troublesome enemy can send you several encounters and mini-bosses back over and over again, and by troublesome, I mean that this game is filled with bullet sponges that would make the Division blush. The frustration doesn't automatically make the game bad, and at many times I did enjoy the challenges it threw at me, but at some points, the game really wanted me to throw my controller. Speaking of the controller, here's a pro tip if you're looking to buy the game on PC. Never, and I mean never, ever try to use the keyboard and mouse. The controls are already finicky on a controller, but those keyboard and mouse controls will drive you insane in the first 5 minutes of gameplay. Just don't do it. What I've just described to you so far probably sounds like a pretty straightforward action game, but this is anything but. Wanted Dead started off like this, a regular game about chopping the limbs off of people, but there's another aspect that I haven't talked about until now, and that's the constant and purposeful tonal whiplash throughout the game that never failed to catch me off guard. Things seemed pretty normal as I progressed through the game's first mission, until I came across a chainsaw lying on the ground. In picking up and using this weapon, I found the first of what would become a pattern of just weird nonsense that changed how I viewed the game overall. After playing through most of the game's introductory mission, slashing limbs off people and shooting the hell out of ninjas, I picked up a chainsaw that flashed a big censored bar every time I chopped an enemy in half with it. This bar came out of nowhere with its bright color and comically small size that hardly covered up any of the violence on the screen. Between missions filled with serious plots and bloodshed, I found myself in ramen eating contests, terrible sounding karaoke, little arcade games. A whole new light dawned on me as the bigger picture of this game opened up before my eyes, and while this doesn't make up for its many flaws, I couldn't stop playing to see what weird things would happen next. As if to try and emulate all of the design beats that make up a cult classic video game, Wanted Dead is packed with all of the cheesy B-movie tropes you could ask for, along with all of the good and bad that comes with them. As it stands right now, Wanted Dead succeeds, perhaps too well, at emulating the vibes of cheesy B-movie and niche PS2 action games, with all of the intrigue and baggage that comes with it. I don't normally bring up the price as a negative when reviewing games, but I feel that this title would find a lot more success if it was priced at the lower bar that it seeks to replicate. There is a spark of charm in all of this nonsense, and I admit to having quite a bit of fun when I really got into the flow of combat, but for the most part, Wanted Dead is a hard sell to all but the most dedicated fans of this specific type of nostalgia. While the combat holds together pretty well around the midpoints of the game, and there are a lot of wacky tonal shifts that add a sort of charm to the experience, a lack of innovation throughout the short campaign, alongside an incoherent plot, poor writing, laughable voice acting, and artificial difficulty scaling from bullet sponges really drags down the overall experience and makes it hard to focus on these scattered moments of surreal entertainment. Wanted Dead is a mess that I really wanted to love, but sadly falls short in too many areas to be able to recommend. Hey, you made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching. Do you have any thoughts on the game? Feel free to leave a comment below. If you got all the way here and don't hate the sound of my voice yet, I also live stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so check out the link in the description below and follow me over there for all of that chaos. If you like this video, please consider hitting that subscribe button and hit that little bell icon to be notified every time I release a new video. You can also join us on the Discord channel to keep up with all of the nonsense we're up to, or follow me on other social media sites. Links for all of those are also in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.